So this happened a few weeks ago, and I can't shake off the chills. Me and my girlfriend Sarah are kinda into doing things that thrill the nerves. 2 weeks ago, during a full moon, we decided to sneak out of our homes and head to this nearby lake. We were looking for a little adventure, just the two of us alone. And for reference, we are both 18. The full moon was big and bright and shone a ghostly glow over everything. It was actually beautiful, but it also felt eerily quiet as we made our way through the woods to the lake. Our footsteps and the distant hooting of an owl were the only sounds we could hear. We kept holding hands because we were both a bit on edge, despite the romantic setting. We reached the lake, which was only a 15-minute walk from our house, and it was stunning. The moonlight's reflection on the water's surface was calm and peaceful. We set up a little picnic. I had brought some drinks and snacks, and we sat right by the water. Everything was going great until Sarah suddenly went quiet and stared out into the woods. I asked her what was wrong, but she just shushed me. I strained my eyes to see what had her so spooked, and that's when I noticed him. A man standing in the shadows of the trees, watching us. At first, I thought he was just some passerby who had wandered into the woods, but the way he was staring at us, it gave me the creeps. I whispered to Sarah, "Do you see that guy over there?" She nodded and told me she had been watching him for a while. We both had this uneasy feeling. The thing that really freaked me out, though, was the way he moved. He had this bizarre, jerky motion about him, almost like a marionette being controlled by an amateur puppeteer. He kept twitching and tilting his head at odd angles. We decided to pack up and leave, thinking it was better to avoid this whole situation. But as we started to make our way back through the woods, I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder. That guy was following us, still twitching and jerking his movements. He was getting closer. I whispered to Sarah, "We need to get out of here, now." We picked up the pace, but no matter how fast we walked, he seemed to match our speed. Finally, we reached the edge of the woods, which led us back to our neighborhood. Just when we thought we were safe, we heard him scream, this blood-curdling, high-pitched scream that pierced through the night. It was inhuman. We sprinted to my house and locked ourselves in my garage. We waited in there for over an hour until we thought the coast was clear. I walked Sarah back to her house and made sure she got in safely. We never found out who that man was or what he wanted. Maybe it was the full moon that drove him to madness, or maybe he was just a deranged lunatic to begin with. All I know is that night was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. We haven't been back to that lake since, and I doubt we ever will. I've been working the night shift at Walmart for a few years now, and I've seen my fair share of weird stuff, but this story was something else. It was a typical night, and I was doing my usual rounds in the store. You know, stocking shelves, helping customers find stuff, and generally trying to keep myself awake. It was a full moon that night, and I always had been suspicious of them. I know they can make people crazy, or so I've been told. A lot of folks believe in all sorts of superstitions during a full moon, and maybe this night there was something to it. Around 2:30 a.m., I was in the electronics section, organizing DVDs, when a man walked over. He had a wild look in his eyes, like he'd seen some crazy stuff. He was disheveled, with wild, unkempt hair and torn clothes. He walked up to me and said, "You gotta listen to me. The world is ending soon." I dealt with my fair share of eccentric customers, but this guy was different. He had this desperate, frantic tone in his voice that made me wonder if he was all there. Based off his question, I'd have to say no. I didn't want to engage too much, so I just nodded and mumbled something like, "Yeah, sure." But he wasn't taking any hints. He started pacing around the store, muttering to himself about the end of the world, how the moon was a harbinger of doom, and other apocalyptic nonsense. Some customers and employees started to look at him like he was a total nutjob, and honestly, who could blame them? The guy's rants were escalating, and he began to get louder. He was waving his arms around, shouting about prophecies and signs. He even grabbed a shopping cart and started pushing it madly through the aisles, knocking over displays and making a real scene. I knew I had to do something, so I called security and told them about the crazy guy causing a disturbance. They said they'd send someone right over, but with the way this guy was acting, I wasn't sure if we could wait that long. It felt like the whole store was about to erupt in chaos. As I watched this guy, he suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, clutching his chest. His face turned white as a ghost, and he collapsed to the floor. People around him gasped, and a few of them rushed over to see if he was okay. The guy was gasping for air, clutching his chest, and it was pretty clear he was in distress. One of the customers was a nurse and started doing CPR while another called 911. I stood there, rooted to the spot, not knowing what to do. The paramedics arrived and they worked on the guy for what seemed like an eternity, but it was all in vain. He was declared dead right there on the Walmart floor. The rest of the night was a blur. The police came and took statements from everyone who had witnessed the incident. They went through the guy's wallet and identified him. It turned out he had a history of mental health issues and had recently gone off his medication. Maybe he truly believed the world was ending, and it drove him to this madness. I finished my shift, but I couldn't get that image of the crazed man out of my head. As I walked out of Walmart and gazed up at the full moon, I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to his ramblings than met the eye, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. I'll be keeping an eye on the news for any signs of the world ending soon. Until then, I'll continue stocking shelves and hoping for more normal nights on the job. I was home alone last year during a full moon, and what I experienced I'm still trying to figure out. It all began when I woke up in the dead of night to a weird noise outside my bedroom window. I live in a relatively quiet neighborhood, so any unusual sounds immediately set off alarm bells in my head. I pulled myself out of bed and tiptoed over to the window. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her, a little girl standing just beyond the window. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. Her eyes bore into mine, devoid of any emotion. I couldn't help but freak out, stumbling backward and falling onto my bed, pulling the covers up to my chin. I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare, but as I peeked out from the safety of my covers, she was still there, her pale face illuminated by the full moon outside. I debated calling the cops, but what could I tell them? Hey, there's a little girl outside my window at 3 a.m. That would probably land me in the loony bin. When I looked back out the window, she was gone, no sign of her. I've always believed in the paranormal and decided to do some research on my own. I grabbed my phone and began scouring the internet for any information about my house. After what felt like hours, I stumbled upon a local news article from years back. The headline read, "Tragic full moon night claims young girl's life." The article detailed a heart-wrenching story. It turns out the previous owner of my house was a family with a young daughter. One night during a full moon, the girl had gone missing. A frantic search by the family and local authorities ensued, but it ended tragically when they found her lifeless body in the woods behind the house. The cause of death remained a mystery, but the article mentioned that the girl's family left the house shortly after the incident. I was positive the girl who was outside my window was her. I spent the rest of the night researching local history, desperate to find any information on the girl's death. The more I dug, the clearer the picture became. It wasn't just any full moon night. It was the anniversary of her tragic passing. The next day, I visited the local library, dug through old newspapers, and even talked to some of the longtime residents of the area. Slowly but surely, I pieced together a timeline of events leading up to the girl's death. As I delved deeper into my investigation, I started experiencing more paranormal occurrences in the house. Objects moved on their own. Strange whispers echoed through the hallways and chilling drafts swept through the rooms. One evening, I discovered an old diary in the attic. It belonged to the previous owner, the girl's mother. The diary contained cryptic entries about strange occurrences in the house and the disturbing feeling that someone or something was watching them. It was evident that the family had lived in fear before the girl's disappearance. In one of the final entries, the mother described a disturbing event that took place on the night of her daughter's death. She wrote about hearing a child's laughter coming from the woods behind the house and her daughter sleepwalking toward the window, whispering about a friend who wanted to play. I realized the girl outside my window might not be seeking revenge or malevolence, but rather the connection she'd lost in life. With the newfound information from the diary, I reached out to a local paranormal investigator. Together, we performed a seance in the very room where the girl had stood outside my window. Since that night, my home has been eerily quiet. The paranormal disturbances have ceased, and the heavy atmosphere has lifted. I'm sharing this story with you all, not as a work of fiction, but as a genuine account of my own experience. If you ever find yourself face to face with the supernatural, remember that sometimes a spirit's haunting is a cry for help, not a thirst for vengeance.